My wife betrayed me with her therapist. Her lover tried to intimidate me. I chose to take revenge, which destroyed them both and ruined their lives. Now they beg for my forgiveness. Let me tell you this story from the beginning. I never thought much about massage therapy until my wife, Natalia, started talking about it as if it were some miracle cure that would transform her entire existence. Looking back now, at 31, supervising the night shift at a distribution warehouse on the east side of Las Vegas, I can see how perfectly Ricardo played his cards from the start. Natalia had been working part-time at Target for about 2 years, always complaining about sore feet and lower back pain from standing at the cash register for 8-hour shifts. So when she first mentioned wanting to try massage therapy at a new wellness center called Desert Oasis that opened near her store, I thought it was a good idea and told her to go for it, especially since we finally had decent insurance that would cover part of it. "Fernando, you should see this place," she said after her first appointment, her eyes brighter than they'd been in months as she kicked off her work shoes and stretched out on our second-hand couch we'd bought when we got married 3 years ago. "It's not like those sketchy places you see in malls. This is professional, clean, with essential oils, and everything smells like eucalyptus and lavender." I was genuinely happy for her because retail work can be brutal on the body, and if spending $50 twice a month could help her feel better, it seemed like money well spent. Especially since I was pulling overtime at the warehouse, we could finally afford small luxuries that had been out of reach when we were both scraping by on minimum wage jobs. The first few sessions seemed normal enough. Natalia came home relaxed and refreshed, talking about how much better her back felt and how she was sleeping more deeply than she had in years. I remember thinking this might be exactly what our marriage needed, something to make her feel pampered and cared for in a way my 12-hour shifts and constant exhaustion didn't always allow. But then something shifted in how she talked about these appointments. Instead of just mentioning her back feeling better, she started giving detailed descriptions of her massage therapist, Ricardo, and his incredible understanding of the human body, an intuitive approach to healing that apparently went far beyond working out knots in her shoulders. "He's not like other massage therapists, Fernando," she'd say, examining herself in our bedroom mirror with a newfound attention I'd never seen before. "Ricardo studies the whole person. He says my tension patterns tell a story about how I've been holding myself back in life, and he's helping me understand where all this stress really comes from." At first, I thought it was just typical wellness center talk, the kind of pseudo-philosophical stuff people in that industry say to justify their prices. But Natalia began incorporating Ricardo's insights into conversations about everything, from her job to our relationship to her dreams for the future, which she'd never shared with me in the same way. She started scheduling appointments twice a week instead of twice a month, claiming Ricardo recommended more frequent sessions to truly address the deeper issues and unlock her healing potential, which apparently required significantly more time and money than we'd originally budgeted for these treatments. The changes in her appearance were subtle at first. She began putting more effort into her outfits on massage days, swapping her usual Target uniform and sneakers for nicer clothes and makeup that seemed unnecessary for a medical appointment. When I asked about it, she explained that Ricardo encouraged his clients to honor themselves and present their best energy during healing sessions because self-care was supposedly a holistic practice that included how you presented yourself to the world. "You wouldn't understand, Fernando," she said one night when I questioned why she needed new athletic wear to lie on a massage table. "Ricardo says people in physical jobs like ours often disconnect from their bodies, and part of the healing process is learning to celebrate and respect yourself again instead of just dragging through life without paying attention to how you feel or look." That stung because I always thought I was pretty good at appreciating her, but according to her new wellness philosophy, my compliments and affection didn't count because I was stuck in the same survival mindset. She was trying to escape through these therapeutic sessions that were starting to sound less like medical treatment and more like some spiritual awakening only Ricardo could provide. First time I truly knew something was wrong was when Natalia came home from what she called an extended deep tissue session on a Tuesday night. Instead of being tired, as she usually was after work, she was practically radiant with an energy that seemed completely inappropriate for someone who'd supposedly spent 90 minutes receiving medical treatment for back pain. "Ricardo said I had some really stubborn knots today," she explained, humming softly and practically floating through our tiny kitchen. "So we had to work longer than usual to really get into the fascia and release all that trapped tension. But wow, I feel like a completely new person." There was something in her voice, a breathy satisfaction that uncomfortably reminded me of how she used to sound after we'd been intimate in the early days of our marriage. When I looked closer, I noticed her hair was slightly disheveled, and her lips looked swollen, like she'd been biting them, something I didn't want to dwell on. I started paying closer attention to the patterns of her appointments, and what I discovered made my stomach knot in ways no massage therapy could ever untangle. She was scheduling sessions at odd times, like Saturday mornings, when the Wellness Center's website clearly stated they were closed for deep cleaning, or late-night appointments that supposedly ran until 9 or 10 p.m., though their posted hours ended at 7. Oh, Ricardo offers special extended sessions for his regular clients, she explained when I questioned the schedule. He's really dedicated to his craft and doesn't mind staying late when someone needs extra attention for their healing journey. The way she said extra attention gave me chills, but I was still trying to convince myself I was just being paranoid because she'd never given me reason to doubt her before. Massage therapy was supposed to be a legitimate medical practice, not a cover for what my imagination was starting to conjure. The breaking point came during a family barbecue at her sister Patricia's apartment, where Natalia stepped out to take what she claimed was a work call, leaving me alone with Patricia as we cleaned up the kids' lunch dishes. "It's so nice that Natalia found something that makes her happy," Patricia said casually while scraping plates. "I mean, I was a little surprised when she told me about those Sunday morning sessions, since I thought you guys usually did grocery shopping together on Sundays, but if it helps with her back pain." My blood ran cold because Natalia had never mentioned Sunday appointments, and we definitely hadn't been grocery shopping together for over a month because she was always too tired or needed to rest after her therapy sessions. "Sunday mornings?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Patricia's face went pale as she realized she'd said something she wasn't supposed to. "Oh, maybe I got that wrong," she backtracked quickly. "You know how I get mixed up with schedules." I probably confused what she said about switching her target shifts, but the damage was done. That night, I started digging through our credit card statements and bank records, uncovering charges from Desert Oasis Wellness Center on days when Natalia was supposedly at work or running errands, expensive treatments like couples consultation sessions and private aromatherapy experiences that cost 3 times as much as regular massages and definitely weren't being billed to our insurance. The final straw came on a Thursday night when she said she had to work late because Target was doing inventory. I decided to surprise her with dinner from her favorite Mexican place, only to find the store closing at its normal time, no inventory in sight, and her car nowhere in the employee parking lot. Something inside me snapped, and instead of going home to wait for another lie, I drove straight to the wellness center, my hands trembling on the steering wheel as I tried to brace myself for what I might find. The parking lot was supposedly empty since they'd been closed for 2 hours, but there in the back corner, partially hidden behind a dumpster, was Natalia's beat-up Honda Civic with the dent in the front bumper from when she'd backed into our mailbox last Christmas. I sat in my truck for what felt like an eternity, staring at the building and trying to convince myself there was some innocent explanation. But when I finally mustered the courage to walk to the side entrance, I could see light coming from a back room and hear voices that made my heart pound so hard I thought it might explode. The door was unlocked and I made my way down the hallway, following the sound of Natalia's laughter, the kind of genuine, carefree laughter I realized I hadn't heard directed at me in months, until I reached the partially open door of what was clearly a private treatment room. What I saw through that crack shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Natalia was lying on the massage table, but this was no therapeutic session, and Ricardo's hands were exploring places that had nothing to do with back pain or muscle tension. When I pushed the door open, they both froze, and for a moment, the only sound was the soft spa music playing from a small speaker in the corner. "Fernando," Natalia said, sitting up slowly without any effort to cover herself or show shame. "This isn't what it looks like." But her eyes told a different story, and when Ricardo turned with this smug grin, like he'd been expecting me all along, I knew whatever this was had been going on for much longer than just that night. "Actually, Fernando," she continued, her voice taking on that same condescending tone she'd been using whenever she talked about my lack of understanding of her wellness journey. "This is exactly what it looks like, and maybe it's time we're honest about what I really need in my life. Because Ricardo makes me feel alive in ways you never could, and I'm tired of pretending that coming home to you and your boring routine is enough for me." 3 days after catching them together, Natalia had the audacity to text me, asking to meet at Mel's Diner on Charleston Boulevard, claiming we needed to discuss our situation, like mature adults, and figure out how to move forward in a way that honored everyone's feelings. Exactly the kind of new age therapy speak Ricardo had apparently taught her to justify destroying our marriage. I almost didn't go, but something inside me needed to hear what kind of twisted logic she'd used to explain away 3 years of marriage for whatever fantasy this massage therapist had sold her. So I found myself sitting in a cracked vinyl booth at 7 p.m. on a Saturday, staring across the table at a woman who looked like my wife, but spoke like a stranger coached by someone with a psychology degree from Google University. Natalia arrived first, dressed in clothes I'd never seen before, sleek, expensive, athletic, where that definitely didn't come from Target's employee discount section. When Ricardo walked in 5 minutes later, wearing a tight black shirt that screamed, "I spend more on protein powder than most people spend on food," I realized this wasn't going to be a husband and wife conversation. This was going to be an ambush with an audience. "Fernando," Ricardo said, sliding into the booth next to Natalia, his voice dripping with the kind of fake concern therapists use when they're about to deliver bad news. "I'm glad you agreed to meet because Natalia and I have been talking, and we think it's important to handle this situation with integrity and respect for everyone involved." The sheer arrogance of this guy, sitting next to my wife, acting like some marriage counselor instead of the predator who'd been manipulating vulnerable women in his massage rooms, made my hands clench under the table. But I forced myself to stay calm because I wanted to hear exactly how deep this betrayal ran. "The thing is, Fernando," Natalia continued, reaching out to touch Ricardo's hand in a gesture that felt like a knife twisting in my chest, "what Ricardo and I have discovered together goes beyond physical attraction. It's a spiritual and emotional connection I've never experienced before, and I can't go back to pretending that what we had was enough for me." I looked at this woman who used to cuddle up next to me on Sunday mornings, who used to laugh at my dumb jokes and steal bites of my breakfast, and I couldn't reconcile her with this person talking about our marriage like it was some starter relationship she'd outgrown. "So, hear what we're thinking," Ricardo said, leaning forward with the confidence of a man who thought he held all the cards. "You have two options, Fernando. You can walk away quietly like a good little worker, sign whatever papers need signing, and let Natalia move on with her life. Or you can try to be a man about it and make this complicated for everyone." The way he said "good little worker" with that condescending smirk, as if my warehouse job was something to be ashamed of, as if working with my hands instead of manipulating people's emotions made me less of a man, that's when something inside me broke completely. Without thinking, I stood up, grabbed Ricardo by his perfectly fitted shirt, yanked him out of the booth, and slammed him against the wall next to the jukebox, hard enough to make the entire restaurant go silent. "You want to see what this little worker can do?" I growled in his face, watching his smug expression melt into genuine fear as he realized all his gym muscles and alpha male posturing couldn't help him when someone with real anger and nothing to lose decided to fight back. The diner's security pulled us apart before I could do any real damage, but the look of terror in Ricardo's eyes and Natalia's shocked silence told me everything I needed to know about how tough they really were when someone called their bluff. That night, instead of wallowing in self-pity or begging them to reconsider, I did something neither of them expected. I got strategic. My friend Gabriel works security at a casino and knows people who know things. Within 24 hours, I had the name of a private investigator who specialized in documenting affairs and financial fraud. While Ricardo was probably bragging to his coworkers about healing another man's wife and intimidating some warehouse supervisor into backing down, I was systematically gathering evidence of every hotel charge, every overpriced couple's treatment at luxury spas, every dinner at restaurants I could never afford, all paid for with credit cards in my name. The deeper I dug, the more I realized this wasn't just about an affair. They'd been planning to drain our accounts and disappear together, using my hard-earned money to fund their fantasy life, while leaving me with nothing but debt and humiliation. Bank records showed transfers to Ricardo's personal account for therapy equipment that was actually funding their weekend getaways, and text messages between them revealed plans for him to quit his job at the wellness center so they could move to California and start over with my life savings as their startup capital. The most damning evidence came from Ricardo himself, who apparently couldn't resist documenting his conquests on social media, bragging to other massage therapists about his special techniques for opening up married women and getting them to invest in his healing journey, both emotionally and financially. By the end of the week, I had enough documentation to prove not just the affair, but a clear pattern of financial fraud and professional misconduct that would destroy both of their futures. For the first time since that horrible night at the wellness center, I felt like I held the cards instead of being played by people who thought they were smarter than some warehouse worker who didn't understand their sophisticated relationship dynamics. The following Monday morning, while Ricardo was probably still nursing his bruised ego and planning his next move, I walked into Desert Oasis Wellness Center with a manila folder full of evidence and asked to speak with the owner, a middle-aged woman named Susan. She took one look at the documented proof of her employees' special therapy sessions and went pale as a sheet. "Mr. Martinez, I had no idea," she said after reviewing the photos, bank statements, and screenshots of text messages that clearly showed Ricardo had been using her business as his personal hunting ground for vulnerable married women. "This is absolutely not what we stand for here, and I can assure you Mr. Herrera will be terminated immediately and reported to the state licensing board." Within hours, Ricardo's massage therapy license was suspended pending investigation, and by the end of the week, 2 other women had come forward with similar stories of inappropriate conduct and financial manipulation, turning what he thought was just an angry husband into a full-blown scandal that destroyed his career and reputation in the wellness community. The meeting with my lawyer was even more satisfying, especially when she explained that using someone else's credit cards without permission, even in a marriage, constituted fraud when done deceptively for personal gain, and that Ricardo's involvement in the scheme made him liable for both civil and criminal charges that could result in serious jail time. "The beauty of this case, Fernando," she said, organizing the evidence into neat stacks, "is that they documented everything themselves. The hotel receipts, the overpriced spa treatments, the texts about hiding expenses from you, they basically built the case against themselves while thinking they were too clever to get caught." When the legal papers were served, Ricardo's demeanor shifted dramatically from the arrogant alpha male who tried to intimidate me at the diner to a desperate, panicked man who suddenly realized seducing married women wasn't just morally wrong. It was financially catastrophic when those women used their husbands' money to fund the affairs. Natalia's phone call came exactly 3 days after Ricardo received his court summons. The woman who'd been so cold and dismissive about our marriage was now sobbing and begging for forgiveness, claiming she'd been manipulated and taken advantage of by someone who knew exactly how to exploit her insecurities. "Fernando, please, you have to understand," she sobbed over the phone. "Ricardo told me what we had wasn't real love, that I deserved something better, and I was so confused and vulnerable after years of feeling unappreciated. I made a terrible mistake, but that doesn't mean I don't love you." The most pathetic part was hearing her try to paint herself as another victim of Ricardo's manipulation, conveniently forgetting she'd been the one who suggested using our credit cards for their romantic getaways and had actively participated in planning their California escape with money I'd earned through 12-hour warehouse shifts. I let her talk for about 10 minutes, listening to her cycle through denial, bargaining, and empty promises about how therapy could fix everything and how she'd do anything to rebuild the trust she'd destroyed. But when she finally ran out of steam, I said something that surprised even me. "Natalia, I forgive you," I said, and I meant it, not because I wanted her back, but because holding on to the anger was only hurting me. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean pretending what you did was okay or that we can go back to how things were. The divorce was finalized 6 months later, with Natalia getting exactly what she'd put into our marriage financially, which, after legal fees and the restitution she owed for the fraudulent charges, left her with almost nothing and a credit score that'll take years to repair. Ricardo ended up pleading guilty to the fraud charges and permanently lost his professional license, destroying any chance he had of working in the wellness industry again. Last I heard, he was working at a car wash in Henderson and living with his mother while trying to pay off the legal debts that piled up from multiple lawsuits. The most unexpected part of this whole nightmare was how much stronger and more confident I felt once the dust settled. Something about standing up to people who thought they could bully and manipulate me had awakened a part of me I'd forgotten existed during all those years of trying to be the perfect, accommodating husband. I started taking better care of myself, not because some therapist told me I needed to honor my body, but because I realized I deserved to feel good about who I was. I began pursuing interests and friendships I'd neglected while focusing all my energy on trying to save a marriage that was already dead. About a year later, I met Carmen at a community college class where I was taking business administration courses, thinking it might be time to move beyond warehouse work and build something bigger for myself. She was studying to become a paralegal after raising her kids as a single mom, and something about her quiet strength and genuine warmth reminded me what real connection felt like, the kind that doesn't require drama or crisis to feel meaningful. "You know what I like about you, Fernando," she said one night while we were studying together in the library. "You're solid, like someone I can count on to be the same good person tomorrow that you are today, and after everything I've been through, that's the most attractive quality a man can have." We've been together for 2 years now, and every day I'm grateful that Natalia's betrayal taught me the difference between someone who wants excitement and someone who wants a partnership, between someone who sees you as a provider and someone who sees you as a person worth investing in. Sometimes I drive past the old wellness center, which closed 6 months after the scandal broke, and I think about how close I came to losing myself in the wreckage of that situation. But instead of feeling bitter, I feel proud of the man I became when I chose to fight back with intelligence instead of just emotion. And I'm genuinely happy knowing that quiet strength, when finally tested, can outmatch all the arrogance in the world.